What's up, everyone? My name is Alex, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. I wanted to talk about my male days versus my neutral days versus the overlap between the two identities. Obviously, I've made it pretty clear I'm bigender, so I experience two genders sometimes simultaneously, sometimes switching back and forth. But I wanted to talk about what that means, like what the difference between the two things are for me. I've always been confused about giving tangibility to the two genders. I don't know if tangibility is the word. Trying to place what the two genders are doing at any given moment, because some people have fluid genders, some people have fluctuating genders, and I have never considered myself gender fluid or fluid between any genders, and I've never considered myself to be gender flux. I don't experience fluctuations in gender, so I don't ascribe to those labels or experiences, but somehow there is a gendered shift. I shift from one gender to another, but it's still, in my head, it still feels very static. Normally when you're changing genders, that's not static gender. That is gender fluidity or gender flux. I mean, I guess for some people it might be different, but I feel like it's almost like an on-off switch where, some days male, like flip the switch up, that's male, flip the switch down, it's Neutrois. But that doesn't really explain the overlap in the two identities. I think, I don't know, it's so weird to think about. But that's the best way I can describe how the two genders kind of, I guess, manifest in my day-to-day life. Some days are more male, some days are more neutral for me, and there are moments where the two overlap. So on my male days, I do feel more masculine. I do present in a more masculine way, or consider myself to be, fully male, or mostly male at least. I've explained that I don't consider my malehood to be masculine. My masculine presentation is just for passing, but I don't believe in genders being inherently aligned with masculine or feminine, because then it's like, well, here's a list of these genders. They're all feminine, and if someone masculine wants to identify with them and that person does not feel feminine in any way, it kind of excludes them from using those labels. So I would not consider being a demi-boy or being male at all to be masculine aligned. I talked about this before because I've had people question me, like, okay, how are you a demi-guy if you're not mask aligned? And I'm like, well, because malehood isn't inherently mask aligned. It's not an inherently masculine gender, because that just throws gender non-conforming people under the bus, or multigender people, or people who are male and do not consider themselves to be masculine in any way. I don't like alignment in that sense. So I don't consider my malehood to be masculine, but on my male days, I will present more masculinely, act or appear more masculinely, because it helps me pass as male, and it relieves a lot of dysphoria for me. And in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to present so masculinely in order to pass as male, but that's for another discussion entirely. On days like that, I'm pretty masculine, or neutral leaning masculine. So there's kind of a gradient of masculine and neutral leaning masculine, and neutral. I don't know if I can really hit completely neutral, because it makes me think androgyny, which is not what I'm going for. But so I'm usually one of two things. I'm usually pretty masculine or neutral leaning masculine, at least on the more male days. And I prefer he, him pronouns, but On the more neutral days, I guess, I feel more experimental with gender. I express in a way that's, I guess you could say, a little more queer. Like, it's almost like on my more neutral days, I feel more queer. And I want to present in that way by experimenting with presentation, with pronouns, with identity labels. Like, there is an otherness there. But it's almost as if the malehood is still there. I have considered malehood at this point to be almost like the foundation on which I build my gender. So no matter how I'm feeling on any particular day, I feel like the malehood is still at the core of that identity. When there are days where the identities are more overlapping, it's more like I would call myself a non-binary man, or experiencing malehood in a very queer way. You could even call it like neo-binary, or neo-binary meaning like binary but in a newly adapted way, like a queer binary experience. Or there's the word proxphere, which is, similar to male but other, very queer, kind of in its own category, but similar to binary male. I think that's where I get that overlap, I guess. I feel like malehood influences all other aspects of my identity. Like, I kind of discovered I was male and built my identity on top of that. Like, I am a man. These are the very male terms that I use and the very male pronouns that I want, at least like for me. Obviously, like, he, him pronouns are not male pronouns. But for me, that is how I built my male identity. And then I started experimenting by using malehood as sort of a baseline or sort of a reference point. So my neutrality kind of calls back to malehood. Like, that is how I compare my neutrality, where it's like, okay, like, I feel neutral, and here's how it compares to my malehood, or here's how like my malehood is kind of anchored to that. So it's an inseparable part of any aspect of my identity, at least my gendered experiences, where like the malehood is still always there. Malehood influences my neutrality, and my neutrality overlaps with my malehood. I think the overlap is the largest part of the identity. I'm not really sure, because I've always considered myself mostly male. I still call myself a demi guy sometimes, but there's a pretty large overlap as well, and that's where I'm experiencing malehood through a neutral scope, or neutrality in a male leaning way. That's the very messy explanation on how I experience my two genders. I can't really place exactly how I experience the two genders in like a really neat or sensical way. It's just when I feel a way, I know it, but I have days where I'm dysphoric and I can't find a reason for it. I can't find a source for the dysphoria. I just feel dysphoric. Like, I am definitely not being a man in the way that I need to be, or like, I'm definitely not queering gender in the way that I want to. And I have no idea how to. So, yeah, that's the best way I can explain being both male and Neutrois, and like what it's like to have an overlap between the two. It's very rare that I'm ever fully on the other end of the spectrum, like totally neutral. It's not genderless, and it's not so far removed from malehood, I don't think. Yeah, it's it's a heck of a thing to try to explain, but I thought I'd do a video just kind of breaking down the identity. I did a video on breaking down my demi boy identity, part male, part what's that other part, which that video is doing really well. I am so happy for that video. I I might go and start like sharing it. As it hits like another 1,000, I usually go and share it on different platforms to kind of get it circulating and get people like talking in the comments again. It kind of like, it almost resets the audience. I guess that's about it. Just a quick little video on talking about my gender as always. But the next video I want to talk about, I'm going to do a video on pronouns. I've done videos on pronouns before, but I think as part of this particular series, especially in the shorter format, I want to talk about pronouns and have it available in a shorter video and kind of a newly updated sort of explanation on that, because I've done a ton of videos on pronouns I've considered, pronouns I use now, and why I do, but it was a larger discussion topic, and those discussions are tucked away in like longer videos as part of the original series that I used to upload. So I want a shorter version of that topic. So anyway, I am signing off for now. See you later.